welcome back to the Weekly Roundup, the place where we unpack what's been going on in the yoga and wellness world and what we've been coaching our clients through. I'm here with my lovely group of coaches, Bridget, Josh, Terry, and we are ready to speak about people be peoplein, as always. And so, Bridget, why don't you take it away? You had a couple clients this week or very recently have very similar problems, and I think we've all heard this before. So, why don't you kick
Yeah,
it
definitely. I'm so funny because I said it to Carol and Terry, and then I just repeated it to Josh, and now I'm self-conscious that this is my third time saying this like within the last 2 minutes, but I'm gonna try and do it third time's a charm. So I was just saying how I've had this come up with a few clients over the past year that they come to us, which usually before they come to us and then after they come to us, it's, some big changes happen in the business and they often come on board and they've got, a person they've had by their side in the business for sometimes years, sometimes as much as a decade even. And once they start making these really big changes, and I think, um, one thing that happens is it's not only your business that changes when you really commit to this work, but who you are as a leader and a boss um, and yeah, as a business person. And suddenly it comes to a point with many that this person that has been there by their side, and in some cases, really even running the business with them, just no longer is maybe a fit, or you're reevaluating, is this person a fit anymore for the business that I'm now creating? So that's coming up with a client or two right now, and it has definitely come up before. So I've got lots of thoughts, but I'd love to hear from my fellow coaches. Have you experienced this too?
500 times.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time. I think, there's a few things that come up from this uh, that are, I'm sure we'll get to, but the one that comes to mind first for me is just, we've all heard, or like if you read any business books, any growth books, any entrepreneurial anything, you're going to run into the idea that you're the sum of the six people you spend the most time with. And when you grow and change, you're going to lose people. Those two subjects will come up, and they are true. And like they're a simplification of something, but the sort of, I'm going to say, leaving people behind thing is something that I think until you really legitimately experience it, you don't fully believe it, I think, for a lot of people, part one. And part two, until you really legitimately experience the fact that it needs to happen and you will actually be the one who prompts it, then it will make you feel very uncomfortable. And I don't know that this is the case in the manager or whatever not being fit anymore necessarily, but I think that this is a common thing where it's like, I'm now going to do this way. I'm going to change expectations. I have grown to be this person. I'm holding myself accountable to this standard. And suddenly, someone in relation to that like doesn't fit, which is not a commentary on them, the person, or you. It's a commentary on the fact that you've changed the equation for the better, and they aren't coming with you. And maybe they can't, maybe they don't want to, maybe you don't want them to. Like none of that's judgment
Or
on them whatsoever. It's just it, but it is a thing that happens. And so I feel like we get a lot of tension. We wait a real long time to let go of that stuff when it's like your whole life would be a lot easier if you just realize when that's happening, kind of move on.
and the other part of that is that or they actively work against you, whether sometimes not even consciously, but just subconsciously,
They're
they
holding you back.
they're holding you back. I mean, I have a client that she's got a couple key people that have been from the previous owner, and every time it's just like it's pulling teeth kind of thing. So that And I agree with you, John. Actually, on a personal level, I experienced that exact thing when I decided to become a yoga teacher. I had like these two longtime friends. One all the way back to childhood. We went to kindergarten all the way through high school together, and lost touch through the years. But then turned out we ended up living close to each other, so we reestablished, and we like went out all the time. Started my yoga journey. I had another friend that I've been in over a decade, and we were all about the same age, but it was, I think my leaving my corporate job to pursue something that I was passionate about made them very uncomfortable. And they actively were working, giving me all the reasons why I shouldn't go to teacher training. Whereas, like my newer friends that I made through yoga, hell, even my family was more supportive than these two friends, truthfully. But I did literally, I had to recognize, wow. And it was really hard. And those friendships just ended during my teacher training because it's just like they couldn't deal with it. So from a very personal, visceral level, I understand that. And it happened in my business as well. But it really does. Sometimes you do have to leave people behind, and it is hard. It's like you have to divorce your friends in a way.
Terry,
Brilliant.
you're good at firing people and divorcing people.
I
Like
am.
it's like a life skill that if I need to do either of those things, I'm coming to you first, you know?
Well,
Like there's I know that you take that the right way
I
too
do take that
for
the right
listeners who
way.
are like, "What? You can't say that to
What? No, no, no. But anyway, so I just wanted to throw that out there, and it can be done, and it hurts. It does hurt.
Totally.
It totally hurts. Yeah. But
I think the only thing I would add to that is just sometimes part of this was like a weird thing that I have experienced a couple times pretty heavily, and I didn't really get it at first on a personal level. It's normal that we go through, well, you could say phases of grief, but like you mourn the loss of things, even when the loss of the thing isn't negative that you're losing it. It's like it's a necessary path. You still will mourn the loss of it in a weird way. Our nervous system does that. And so it's almost like if you have nostalgia for someone or a situation, and now you're moving on from it, it still kind of feels a little shitty. Like, and I've had that with some friends too, where I changed and got my own shit together, or whatever, and like they're just suddenly not there. And I still have really positive memory, but just there's nothing to talk about, and they do nothing to prop me up. But also, the big realization for me, the flip side of what you're saying, Terry, too, is like I have nothing to offer them. Like like I don't have any advice. I don't have anything to talk about that they're interested in. Like we're just not on the same page anymore. It's okay. This is what it is. But in business, I feel like it's harder to, with friendship, you feel the emotional tension of it immediately. In business, you also do, but it gets muddy really easily. Like it's harder to see it with as much clarity sometimes because you're like, this manager's been with me for 4.5 years. Like, why? And now the business is doing better. What's their problem?
well, I guess the thing is, if you're listening to this, is like, well, and if you're in this situation, what steps do you take? It's all well and good. You've identified it. So what are some practical things that you can
Uh,
do?
I was just going to
I'm
say
channeling
practical tips.
practical tips, Bridget. How can you actually, so you see this person is not the right fit anymore, been with you for however long.
Yeah.
How do you extricate? Is that the right use of that word?
Yeah,
Extricate?
that is the
Ooh,
right use.
that's an
Yeah.
SAT word.
Extricate.
Extricate yourself.
Yeah.
And how do you go about doing it? I have
Yeah.
some thoughts, but Carol, what's some thoughts you might have on that?
Thanks, Terry.
You're welcome, Carol.
Well, I think first off, if it's somebody that's been with you for a really long time, like hopefully you feel comfortable having a very direct and honest conversation with this person. If you don't, that's actually a problem to start with. And I think there are a couple things you can do. One, we always talk about leaning on your core values. Like, look, it feels like there's a misalignment right now. And so, can we get on the same page, or is it just not a fit anymore? I think that's a really direct way to not like judge what they are or aren't doing in your business for you anymore, but say, like, look, this is the path I'm going on. Here are core values. I'm really focusing here. Are you with me or are you not? And I mean, one of the things this has come up with a client of mine recently, and she's been asking this person, like, it feels like we're misaligned, and the person says, no, 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 I'm here, I'm with you, but like there's like can sense that this person is not there. So that's a little more tricky, right? Because it feels like somebody's not being completely honest in this situation and can't really we can't dig deeper if we're not being honest. So that's a trickier situation, I think. But a lot of times when you start having these conversations with people, like they will say, you know what, I don't align with this anymore. And it doesn't become okay, well, get the hell out. It's like, you know what, if at any point, I've loved having you around for 10 years, 4 years, whatever it is. And if you at any point want to come back and can align with these core values in this direction I'm going, I would love to have you back. So that's one thing you can do. I think another thing is like sort of lean into what they're good at and what will help you in the business and like talk through that as an option. Because maybe they've been thrown some tasks that they were just kind of like something you didn't want to do anymore. And so they're not really great at it and they haven't had a lot of maybe education or, practice in that area. And you realize that you need somebody that really knows their shit in that area. And it's like, look, I don't want to take away, but I just want to lean into what you're really good at and could really, help the business thrive. So maybe that's another way to go about it. You could suggest another path for them. So those are my couple of thoughts.
Yeah, those are exactly along the lines of what I would definitely advise and what I have advised and what I've even done in my own business many times, it feels like at this point. Uh, one thing that occurs to me is it's so normal and fine for someone not to it's normal for someone not to grow and change at the same time as you. That's totally normal. And one thing I want to say before my practical tips is that it left my brain. So I guess I'll just go to my practical tips. What I was thinking is very practical. Before you do anything, if you haven't already, this is obviously something we yes, definitely a senior moment. Definitely find out everything they are doing for your business. Make a comprehensive list. This is something I am so strict about with my staff, that if I ever find out that there's something they are regularly doing for the business that is not like part of their official task list, they have to put it on the task list. Like you can't, there's no little projects. Like if you're regularly cleaning out the closet, you have to identify that somewhere. You have to write down that you are regularly cleaning out the closet, because if you fall off the face of the earth tomorrow, I need to know that there's like work that has to be done, that whatever. So make a comprehensive list of what they are doing. If that doesn't exist already, hopefully it does. And then I totally co-sign what Carol mentioned about figuring out, is there a place for them in the business that does align with what their strengths are, is a great idea. And it often does work out that way. I remembered my other thing. When you muster the courage to, to extricate yourself, be that reassigning this person or removing this person from the business, what you are doing is making room for someone who does align with your business. And it's so important. And it never ceases to amaze me, the law of attraction in action in stuff like this, that when I grow as a leader, suddenly the people who apply for my jobs that I post are so much better. The people that I am drawn to when I'm hiring are just so much better, and not for anything conscious that's going on. It's just this, like, to me, it's just this mystery, this mystical thing that happens. And it's just one of the greatest parts of growing as a leader is who you attract as you grow.
I love
That's
that.
all.
Another practical tip is when you're having these type of situations, don't do it at your place of business. Meet them somewhere, you know, so that you're taking it out of the building unless you have an office. Like I didn't have an office. So if you don't have an office or something, you can always invite them out. And the other practical tip too is if the job has changed, have you rewritten the job description? Right? Rewrite the job description. I've done this with some clients, is write the job description. And then if you feel the person's not misaligned, but maybe just misaligned with the job, then it could be, this is the job. Is this something you still want to do? If you want the person to stay on board, right? So if it's just a misalignment of the job, then rewrite the job description and go to them and say, this is now this job that has changed, blah, blah, blah. And maybe they're like, yeah, this is great. Or like, that's not exactly what I want to do. We see this frequently, particularly in like when we work with not at a higher level. I shouldn't say that. That's at the front desk level, right? Is that when people really start to take ownership of their front desk and recognize that when I say people, owners, the receptionist, front desk, whatever you choose to, their titles are, and really realize it is a sales position and the team you have in place are not salespeople, right? So that's oftentimes where some of this will start right away. And I'm working with a couple of clients right now on that. And then that's where you have and the client did that, and the person's like, no, I don't want it. I'm just not comfortable doing this. Right. So it really made that. And so in this case, they were really good at something else at the studio. So now that focus is there. And oftentimes people will just self-select, like you said, Josh. They're just like, yeah, no, this isn't what I want. This isn't what I signed up for, in a way. So it's
Yeah.
the clearer you are and what the job is, what the expectations are, and the core values, Carol. I love that you started with that. Then the more logical the decision becomes. It maybe not easier emotionally because we are people, humans, but and then it's coming from a place of alignment, I guess, Josh.
Yeah. I think the two things that come up for me is one, when you change something, like change is harder than starting new for most of us. And it's why we have such a strong draw to novelty. It feels like if I could just start from scratch. Terry just commented, burn it down. Exactly. Like the desire to burn it down is not for the burn down. It's for the phoenix rising from the ashes part. It's the starting from scratch part. But then we're also wired to hold on to what we have. And so there's like this internal conflict that we all experience, and your employees will experience that too, etc. The radical responsibility part is if you change the equation, it's like your expectations are different, the boundaries look different, everything is shifted, so you'll get that tension. So I say all of this just to like double down on what Bridget, what you were saying, and what you're saying, Terry, and the core values piece is like fundamental to this, Carol, that don't get yourself all flustered on it either. Change requires, and that is the word I would prefer to use, requires sacrifice. You're going to have to give something up to change something. And business throws that in your face all the time. Sacrifice isn't necessarily negative. And in this case, doesn't necessarily have to be a person either. But it's just realizing that that's kind of like in my opinion, and experience coaching, like it's like a universal truth. So just what it is. In a weird way, in a little bit more, I'm going to use the word advanced for lack of a better word that comes to mind right now, like advanced entrepreneurs that we're coaching who are at a certain success level and understanding of their business. There's this moment where sometimes the way that we figure out what to do is by figuring out what to sacrifice, not by figuring out what to do. Like, what's the thing we can axe and let go of or not do or close down or whatever. Like that's actually the path forward. Is not even looking at what to do next. It's looking at what to let go of. Um, and then the only other piece when it comes to the person part of this, I think too, owners especially and managers, I think, really underestimate their leadership quality in these cases. Like we underestimate how much you're going to not have to have a lot of difficulty with someone like a manager if you really put in the effort to sell them on the new thing. Because going back to what you were saying, Carol, that it's like with core values and belief on, and like, are we rowing the boat the same direction kind of thing? Well, if you change the direction of the boat, but I'm still rowing, you got to tell me. Okay, now we're going this way, and here's why we're going this way, and here's how we're going to go this way, and here's how exciting it is that we're going this way. Like, if you get me hyped on that and kind of sell me on it, I'll come with you. And so I think that's the other piece of the puzzle here is, yeah, you might grow beyond someone, but sometimes you also find tension in your team when you change things because you got excited, you changed something out of necessity, and you just changed it, but you didn't tell the whole team that you're changing shit and why and how. You didn't sell them the new vision, you know? We just moved forward. Because also, very often, you as the owner, the entrepreneur, like the speed at which you're moving in your business is exponentially faster than the people under your employ, including your manager. And you'll know that that's the case if when you start to describe people on your own team as resistant to change. Oh, Terry just doesn't do well when we change things. She doesn't like it. That might be true, but also if you start finding yourself saying that kind of at a frequent whatever, it means you're probably changing shit and not telling them that you're changing shit in a really powerful way. That's not resistant to change in a negative sense. That's the like, what the fuck's going on? That's what they're saying, but can't say to you.
We had this, well, I had this happen in absolute real time. It was just about 2 years ago. We were doing an onsite at one of my clients, and we were making some fundamental changes, and we did the sales training. And even from the start, the owner could sense that her long-term manager was just really uncomfortable with the things we were doing. And the day we did the sales training, it was absolutely classic. She was there in plenty of time. I forgot what time it started, but she was there like easily a half hour before. But yet, when I started the training, we like to start always on time. Like we want to be respectful of people's time, so I started on time. She was 10 minutes late. And then what she did was we were doing it in their yoga room, and she sat in the doorway with her back against the door jamb, half out of the room and half in the room. Was like arms folded, just kind of like that. Just very, very rich. She didn't say anything, but you could just feel it simmering around her. And so then I don't know if you recall this, Josh, but I was on a panic call with Josh. How do I navigate? Because this is one of my first solo on sites. How do I navigate this? What should I do? And Josh, we talked about some strategies. And one of them was which is to just meet with her and do this and talk about it. Of course, the owner was like, I don't want, she was concerned. And it ended up that the manager would just absolutely point blank refuse to talk about it and then just quit. And
Right.
the owner was obviously upset by that. And we were like, that's not a problem. We had something posted. We got it online. She found someone, hired them. They were on board before we left. And this manager's been in place 2.5 years later, and the studio's doing great. So at the end of the day, sometimes these things that you feel can be so hard and you're afraid to make that change actually end up being some of the best things that you can do, Josh.
This is a little different parallel path that you're highlighting too. That's something that's come up for me twice in the last week and a bit here. There's like this really weird thing that shakes out from what we're talking about. So you start building your business, you're doing better, you change things, and then you realize there's a tension with someone under your employee, as the example. And then you rationalize it. Well, I didn't tell Carol. Well, to Carol's defense, she's busy at home with her kids doing the what Well, yeah, but she really like Carol just really cares about her clients and she tries real hard and she's been with me for 10 years and like we make all these excuses sort of thing. Oh, yeah, Terry just posted in the comments. It's just Carol's got another job. It's just a side gig, you know? And so we like make excuses for the person instead of having the conversation that you're talking about, Terry, which I didn't remember exactly the scenario you're talking about, and have done it myself with teams a few times, where it's like we're not talking about something confrontational negative. We're just talking about going to someone and being like, hey, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but like seems like you're super not into this and it's creating a tension and we're all feeling and seeing it. Are you okay? Like, what's up? And like not even saying anything about it, half the time that results in the person being like, yeah, I don't like this, I'm out. Okay, well, sorry, like I can't make you stay. I don't know. But if you didn't say that, if you're just like, oh, Carol was in the corner with her arms crossed and give me the stink eye and whatever, and like, first off, let me tell you, if you want to see the best stink eye, Carol's got it. Carol can kill you with like we actually have to we have like a special program we programmed with AI into our Zoom meetings where if a stink eye comes out, it like blanks Carol's face because she will actually give you a heart attack. But I digress. Tell me
You're
if you
getting
want
it
the
right
code and I'll
now.
send
You're
it to
getting it
you.
right now. That's what's happening.
Remember last week my comment about your upcoming impending big birthday? Oh my God, that was classic.
I love turning 39 every year. It's so great every single year time. So
Every time I turn
thanks.
39, it's just the best. It's
The
the best
best.
age. The best age. Everyone knows that. Anyways, if you like make excuses and if you don't call the thing out as the owner because that's more comfortable for you, like let's be honest, why that's happening, or because you're scared of like an unknown path or that you'd have to hire someone or whatever else, through a certain light, that's called enabling. Like you're enabling that situation. And that's what I see being one of the biggest hiccups in all of this, where you've got someone, you already know the answer and you see the tension and you're either not addressing it or making excuses for it. So you're enabling it to continue. And the reason why this is the correct wording is that it will continue and it will get bigger. Every coach on here is nodding their head if you're just listening to this in the podcast. Like just there are zero scenarios I can think of. I really mean zero, where there's the kind of tension we're describing, where a manager's like kind of not on board with something or whatever, and it gets left alone, and then just suddenly the manager's on board and doing a great job. Zero. There are a lot of scenarios where it gets left alone and it gets exponentially worse and then really blows up in your face. That happens a lot. So
I
I don't
just
know.
want to say at that same onsite, this was like, I think Josh teed this up for me as my first solo onsite because I had all the things at this onsite. Had another teacher that a teacher who was actively pushing back on some of the things we were talking about. I mean, but she was at least asking questions and pushing back, and then at one point kind of shut me down, which was fine. But by the end of the week, because she was bought into what the student, she really did care. By the end of the week, she came up to me and said, I I can see how this will be helpful. And I said, her name is Bridget. I said, Bridget, that is awesome. And now, fast forward 2.5 years, she still teaches and she's selling memberships and intros right and left because she teaches early. She teaches at classes where they don't always have a desk staff person. And, so she's very fine with it now. So it's always very interesting with human dynamics. She needed some time and space. Yeah, she just needs some space and time. whereas the manager was just absolutely not in alignment. So I think that's a big difference too. And that's a great call out. It's like giving someone the space and time to process what's happening, because we all process differently, versus someone who just really is like, fuck you, I'm out of here.
I always think too with stuff like this, when you like continue to enable, I really like that phrase, Josh. When you enable someone in a position like this and you're like, this isn't the right fit, but I don't want to let them go, whatever. The phrase that always comes to mind, I cannot remember, I did not come up with this, but who are you to get in the way of someone else's growth? And that's what you do when you hold on to someone far past the right
Yes.
time. It's in relationships, it's the exact same way. When you are afraid to break up with your boyfriend, but because it would make him really sad or it would be really uncomfortable or whatever, you are standing in the way of him growing. And it's the exact same with your employees. When you think you're like doing like some weird version of the right thing because someone would be sad or be put in an uncomfortable position because they won't have a job or whatever, who are you to do that? Who are you to decide, you know?
I really love that. I mean, obviously, we come out of primarily coaching yoga studios and has expanded beyond that. And one of the expansions has been into, I've worked with quite a few like therapist offices now. And so those conversations get real fun because it's a very meta conversation sometimes where we're like, you can apply this thing that you're coaching people through to your own business, but they're not doing it at first often. But to that point, yeah, this enabling or this making excuses or this getting in the way, it's all ego. It's just this idea that you can control somebody else. And so I think maybe just tie together the whole thing, this idea of what are you responsible for? Fault is irrelevant. So don't even worry about fault. I mean, it's all your fault or it's not your fault. It doesn't matter. But responsibility is the thing to look at. And what is your responsibility versus not your responsibility? That's the personal mental growth piece as an owner, as an entrepreneur, that you'll have to go through over and over and over and over in your own unique, special way. And it's going to be frustrating as hell. And lucky you, because you're just going to be like literally a superhuman over time from it. But that's the huge part of it is like you can't make someone or convince anyone do anything. And even if you could, do you really want to? Like, do you want people under your employ to do the thing 100% because you made them, or vice versa? They stay with you because you didn't hold them accountable to doing the things that their job description says? Is that really what you want ultimately? It becomes very obvious that, like, no. So the tension part is in large part in human to human businesses, especially, the tension is your feeling of the situation and your own complexes, your savior complex, your whatever else. Like it's the human interrelational skill piece that is where most of the feeling comes from. But a lot of that is not your responsibility in a professional relationship. If I hired you for a sales position, and that's literally the title, there's no such thing as you saying, I don't want to sell. Like, fine, then don't, but then you're not in this role. Not because I said so, because what are we talking about? It gets silly.
I think that's a really good point. Another just made me think practical tip, especially if, well, even if you long term, like Carol had hers to do what for almost 20 years, and I'm sure you revised job descriptions numerous times through the years. But if you're starting out, like, because right now we seem to have quite a few people in our community that are newer within whatever of their journey, is write job descriptions or your organizational chart, like your accountability chart, even if you're sitting in every single one of those seats right now, write out the job description. Ultimately, it might change, but have an idea of what that job is and the tasks associated with that job. Because then, as your organization grows, as you're able to hire more people, then you can look and say, okay, what can I now hire someone to do? And so that's a really good thing. And even if you've been in business for a really long time, I made this with a client who's been open at that point. She's now open over 20 years. She was right around 20 years. We just did the whole organization. Now the challenge there is that when we're doing it, I said to her, and I'm doing this with another client right now, is take the person out of the job, define the role. So we make the role and then we have the hire the person that fits the role as opposed to trying to make a job for a person in a way. And that can be the hardest thing if you've been doing this a while, is if you're redefining it, is don't think about the person who's doing those things right now, I guess. I'm seeing a lot of like looks. So, okay, I'll stop.
I'm sending Carol stupid messages.
Yeah. So I think I'm supposed to turn on to the next point. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with this. And so, yeah, what were we? Summer. That's coming up for a lot of our clients right now. And do we change the schedule? Do I have a summer pass? What do I do? And they kind of start to freak out, especially the newer clients. Actually, some of our long-term clients still have like a moment of, I think, for the summer. And we've talked about this a lot. We talk about it every year, but for our newer listeners, I think it's always a good topic to bring up. And so I'll just unleash it to the rest of the crew. Summer, what do we do? Summer challenges, summer packages. What's on your mind?
uh,
I was going to
I'll
say,
take it a different.
summer lovin' had me a blast. Summer lovin'. Josh.
You go to a musical. Uh, there you go. The one thing that we don't often talk about, I think, regarding summer is how it actually highlights other things in the business. So there is a market ebb and flow year to year, season to season, depending on where you are. Like that is a normal thing, and it's more extreme in some markets than others, etc. But the idea that you have a service product that improves somebody's life and then a season change equals your business suffers in a really extreme way doesn't make a lot of sense if your business itself was really, really solid and has engines that are continuing to produce its normal results. If we simplify that and say, you got to get people through the doors, you got to convert them onto your membership or whatever, sell them the thing, you got to keep them participating with you and give them transformation. Like that's it. Nothing of that equation has changed. And so I guess the major one that sticks out to me often in this conversation is the idea that uh-oh, it's summertime. So now I should do something to get more people in the doors, but then also people don't want to come in because it's summer, whatever, whatever. Like that entire logic at the ground level has a little bit of a flaw in it. It's not that you don't do that, but it's very reactive because what it says to me, if I know nothing else about your business at all as a coach, is it says you don't have an engine that produces marketing with the outcome of people coming into your business with consistency that you have serious confidence in. That's what it says, regardless of season. And so that doesn't answer your question, what do you do for summer? But I think it's a really good, I don't know, advantage because like everyone else in your market is probably thinking the same thing. Imagine if you instead right now are being like, I don't know, I don't care because I got this engine that spits out people coming in my doors. Go ahead, Terry.
I always had challenge, I challenge particularly in newer clients and clients, I remind them every year because this is absolutely true. And I see it, I saw it in my own studio, I see it with clients that we've had for multiple years, it's a mind shift. And everybody says summer slow down, summer slow down, summer slow down. Like it's a bad thing. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have what it's this scarcity mindset. And one thing I want to challenge your mindset shift on is a summer less attendance does not mean less revenue. Because again, not to what Josh is saying about having that engine going, that you've got things set up and you've got people coming in, is what that's why if you have people on membership, maybe they pause, but maybe they don't because they recognize the value. Like, you know what, I'm going to be in and out of town this summer. I might not practice as much, but I'm just going to have my membership, even if I only come 4 times this month. I came enough in January to balance it out. Right. So I just want to, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, attendance does sometimes taper off in the summer. But again, it doesn't mean you have to have less revenue. And if you want a really, really fun thing to do in August, August 3rd is National Watermelon Day. You could do some fun little things around fun little things in the summer. On National Watermelon Day, every summer wouldn't do anything special other than I'd have watermelon at the studio, regardless of whatever day, for every class. And I made watermelon smoothies, and we just celebrated August Watermelon Day. It was fun. It was wacky. People look forward to it. It was silly, but that watermelon bowling. I mean, so those are the type of things. So what are you doing for summer? To beyond just fretting about it, what are some fun things you do, Bridget?
Yes, that is what we do for summer is we just make it really, really fun. I just looked back at our KPIs recently because this came up in our mastermind, actually. If you haven't checked out a mastermind, we do them every 4 weeks and they're really fun and awesome. So make sure you get to yours. Um, we this came up in our mastermind. So I wanted to check someone saying, like, I usually get a lot of cancellations in the summer. What can I do? And I thought this was true. And I confirmed that we have never had a bad summer. Like we have like our summer, I even attendance really didn't look that different if I'm remembering correctly, but revenue definitely has not changed at all in any of our summers. And we make summer really fun. We do outdoor classes. We do more like, and if you know me as a business owner, I am allergic to events and workshops. I fucking hate them. I hate doing special fun stuff. I'm not fun at all. I hate fun stuff. But in the summer, I put that all aside for the sake of the community. And we do, like I said, outdoor classes. We do more like even indoors we'll do like live music. I'll kind of loosen the reins and let my teachers do some wacky little like workshopy things. And sometimes if we have our shit together in time, we like call it something. We've done hot honey summer. My studio is called Honey Yoga. So we do hot honey summer and like we do challenges. We just make it a really fun summer so people have FOMO of like not, so they have FOMO and they don't want to leave.
Yeah, those are all great things. I mean, we did the same stuff. The mindset shift was a huge thing. And we started talking to everyone about like why I love to practice in the summer. It feels amazing. Like it's the same temperature outside as it is in the room. So like it feels really good and you're already hydrated, blah, blah, blah. Like we would just like talk that up. And I remember after doing that for a couple of years and coming out of COVID, I think 2021, our June and July was like at that point were our biggest months. And we were like, holy shit, like, okay, this works. Like all the stuff we've been doing. And like, so yeah, it was, it was exciting to see that. And of course, there were factors in all of that, like coming out of COVID, but still, like having really, really strong numbers in June and July in St. Louis, Missouri was pretty cool. Um, our big thing was we started to do a regular summer challenge. We call it Summer Lovin'. Thank you, Terry, for the serenade. And the main goal is just to keep people consistent because we know that there is a bit of a drop off sometimes with, how frequency. And so we just set it up to where it's like you choose 15, 25, or 40 over the 3 months of summer. And that roughly equated to one time a week, oh, from June 1st to August 31st, I guess. Um, is that the 31st? It doesn't matter. Yeah. And or 2 times a week for the 25 or 3 times a week for the 40 classes. And so it was just about keeping people consistent. And we have tons of the cards up on our window and people ask about it and whether they complete it or not, it is like a conversation piece at the studio and they still do it to this day because it's really a successful thing. But yeah, also I just wanted to say that was when I, as a studio owner, just gave myself permission to breathe. So, like, give yourself a moment. Like, you've done a lot. Like Q1 maybe is really push. Q2, you're just trying to get through. Like now you can just take a minute. It's when my child was out of school. I wanted to spend more time with him, while I could. And so, give yourself permission to maybe actually take that day off and like don't check the emails because you deserve it.
I 100%, I would say the same thing. And starting in 2017, 18, and 19, because I sold my studio during COVID in the summer of 2020, but my June, July, and August were better than my January, February, March in all three of those years. And it was because of all that Carol said, all that work doing before. And again, because we did some fun things in my neck of the woods, and I was in New England, right? And so same thing. It's like it'd be as hot out. In fact, for the 6:30 class, oftentimes we didn't even have to turn the heat on because it would be hot and humid enough in the room without the heat being on. And it was super fun. Yes, there was a little bit less attendance, but it was still steady. It was still steady. The other thing too, to Carol's point, is it's okay also summertime can be a good time if you're looking at a major project and you need to shut down for a couple of days, right? You can also utilize some of that, like July is probably a good time, middle of summer, or actually close the studio. Of course, in New England, we couldn't do that around 4th of July because it was just, New England, the 4th of July. But I do know some studios that will close a day or two. And there's nothing wrong with that either, to give to Carol's point. And you can pitch it as, hey, we want to give our team the work-life balance as well. So in terms of, yeah, lots of challenge ideas. In terms of just because I did a workshop presentation last week on scheduling, the art part science. And in terms of summer schedule, you just have to look at it in terms of, and if you are thinking of making, I have some clients that are actually making some substantial changes and I said, well, if we're going to do this, summer's a good time to do it because oftentimes people expect some changes in summer. And so there could be some seasonal changes, if attendance drops off. And this is where, again, I talked in the workshop last week about this is where you look at your data. Look at your data, see what historically has happened. And, maybe you take a class or two off the schedule or something like that. So or if you really want to make a big change to the schedule, I have a client that's making a really big change to their schedule. It's like a fundamental shift. So they're doing it now because they're taking a bunch of classes off because they have too many classes on the schedule. So we're trying to maximize their schedule. So that's a good time to do it. And then the other thing I'll say real quick to Josh, before I pass to Josh, is summer pricing. And here's a pro tip on summer pricing is, a lot of times you hear like student this, student that, whatever. What I recommend is whatever your best price membership is, take that, divide it by either 6, 8, 10, whatever number of weeks, create a weekly price, times that by whatever, sell that as just a standalone unlimited if you want to do something like that. That's my recommendation. Why put out something out there? You don't want to undercut your regular membership, because I've seen people do that, because you don't want people canceling to buy this thing. So you price it in such a way that it's just a standalone, and then anybody can buy it. You don't have to be a student, you don't have to prove that you're a student or do anything like that. That's my other tip, pro tip. Josh.
I got two pro tips. One is just related to the pricing thing. I think like doing a sale in summer doesn't often make sense. The reverse sometimes is the best play. So have you been waiting to do like a price increase? Right now, before summer is a really good time to do a price increase, which sounds backwards to some people. But because, if you've got people who you're going to kind of give an opportunity to keep a current rate that's going up on them, and you want to give them a lot of warning and et cetera, you've got some leverage right now. So it's just, we can talk about that in more detail or whatever, if that's something that's interesting to you. But sometimes it's like the exact opposite of what your market does. Everyone else is saying summer sale, get 3 months for whatever at my Pilates studio. And you're saying prices are going up 10%. If you want to lock in the rate, commit through the rest of the year, sort of thing, uh, as an example. The other thing is, it's come up a lot because it is normal that you start to get in some businesses, especially membership based, an inflection point of cancellations just right before summer and right in summer, which doesn't mean that you've lost that client altogether. And one of the reasons you get cancellation is a change in focus. And the story I've told, I know on the roundup, like in the past couple times, is I remember this client putting a cancellation in, and we were like, "Are you okay? Like, why are you canceling?" They're like, "Well, I'm not practicing enough." We're like, "You're coming 3 days a week, like very consistently. What do you mean?" "Well, I was coming 5 days a week." So like they were coming a whole bunch and then they were coming less, which was still way more than enough for the membership to be the right deal. They're like, "I'm just going to cancel and buy card packs." And we're like, that doesn't make any sense. But they needed to just have that discussion with somebody. And so your cancellation funnel, and especially if you have a sales team in place for cancellation, this is a really good time to start to hone that craft and to try some different things. Clients that are usually doing something that is borderline appointment based, I'm thinking like physical therapy offices, whatever else, but this applies across any business that's service based, right? What's strange is the mentality that I'm going to do all this work and progress myself. And then because the weather's nice, I'm going to quit doing that thing and then maybe pick it back up. That doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of people. But so that's the discussion that is available to you with somebody. And a lot of the people in summertime, like coming towards summertime, that are canceling, that are quitting, you have a relationship with them at this point. Like you've interacted with them a few tens of times. They've been coming for months, maybe, or longer. And so it's pretty casual. And so I would just highlight that in a couple of businesses, we've had the experience, even one right now, it seems to be the case where they've historically had a real drop, like a lot of cancellation. And all we've put in place right now, cancellation leans towards conversation, whether forced as the cancellation path and or the owner themselves, the managers like just ringing the person up and just having a human to human talk with them. Be like, "Yo, Bridget, you're canceling. Like, I was surprised. Are you okay? What's up?" "Oh, it's summertime. We like to go camping at the lake, whatever." Like, "Oh, it's like, so you're just not gonna practice at all for the next 2 months?" "Well, no, I mean, I think I'll probably try to get in here, whatever else." "Well, how do we do that? Let's make this happen." And it works out. Like half the time you end up saving a complete cancellation on that person. So there are more things in your power, like in real time, than you might think. That would be my practical tip. But part of this goes back to, I think Carol mentioned it, and it's just like the most poignant piece of the whole thing is the mentality shift. If you and your whole team and everyone else are like, oh, it's summer, it's gonna be slow in summer, they're like that almost through osmosis ends up in everybody else. You have to shift that. But that then shakes out in your messaging too. Like Carol was saying, yeah, we love practicing. Summer's my favorite time to practice. And even you get to say these things that you got to be careful the timing of them and the tone that they don't come off passive aggressive, but like kind of funny things where you're doing more generic conversation around, oh yeah, sunny outside, so I'm gonna quit my yoga practice and not stretch and not be introspective and not work on my breath at all during the best time of year for me to feel good out in nature. And like you just point fun at the whole thing, like that's absurd. Of course you're not doing that.
We solved summer.
We saw
We did
summer.
it.
Summer doesn't exist.
No summer.
That's the t-shirt you can make right now and sell in your studio. There is no summer. Oh my God. You should make a t-shirt that says winter is coming.
You know
Big
nothing,
White
Jon
Walker
Snow.
face on it.
You know
You
nothing,
know,
Jon
you know
You know
nothing,
nothing,
Jon
Jon
Snow.
Snow.
It's probably trademarked somewhere, right? I don't know if you could use it.
Gah. Yeah. Okay.
Probably.
Not official coaching advice. Not official legal coaching advice. This one.
Well, I don't know. What do you think? Should we?
Oh,
I
This
think
is
it's
a wrap, Carol.
I think
oh,
it's a
oh,
wrap. Boom.
oh my. I'm not ready.
Wake up, Carol. It's
All
time
right,
to
sorry,
end
sorry.
the
All right,
show.
well, they're telling me this is a wrap on this week's Weekly Roundup. So tune in every Friday and make sure you subscribe to the show on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening from. See you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.